Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2024 GMC Canyon, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring kit. Before we get into that though, let's just take a minute, check this out, and make sure this kit is going to be right for you. Right off the bat, I do want to address one of the main questions that a lot of people wonder when it comes to setting up their Canyon to be flat-towed, and that's what parts am I going to need? So there's going to be 5 main components. You have your base plate. You'll have your tow bar, which will connect to the base plate and to the back of your motorhome. Then you'll have your safety cables, your tow bar wiring, and a supplemental braking system. And these Canyons do benefit from a couple of extras as well. One of them being a battery charge line kit to keep your battery charged when you're flat towing, an automatic battery disconnect switch, which will allow you to disconnect your battery with the push of a button. And depending on what supplemental braking system you go with, for example, the Stay and Play Duo or the Roadmaster InvisiBrake, you could benefit from a stoplight switch as well. But with all that said, what the job of the diodes are going to be is to transfer the lighting signals from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Canyon. That way people know what's going on. You'll be safe and legal. And what we usually like to do is be all hooked up to the motorhome so we can really, effectively demonstrate how all that works. But today we have some inclement weather, so kind of making do, stuck inside here. So what I have set up here is my test box, which this is going to simulate the motorhome. And that way we can show you how these signals actually get sent back from here to the back of the truck. I got our left turn signal going and it's getting sent back here. And that's also going to hold true for the right turn, your stoplights, as well as your tail lights. So you have all your bases covered there. And from my experience, after setting a ton of these vehicles up to be flat-towed, not only the Canyon, but a lot of other makes and models, diode wiring is definitely the way to go. The ease of use and the reliability, you just can't really beat. Once these things are installed, you don't see them on the vehicle. And they're ready to go. More or less, you just plug the cable into the front of your truck, to the back of your motorhome, and that's all there is to it as far as getting it set up. Compared to some of the other different types that you could use, for example, magnetic lighting. Those you would stick on the truck, and they're just kind of a pain too. There's something you have to set up every single time, run your wire all the way up to the front, plug it in, take it all apart, store it, so on and so forth. There are several different variations of this kit available, and what one is going to work best for you is really just going to depend largely on your tow bar. For example, today, our neighbor has what I like to call kind of the bare bones kit, right? It just comes with your wiring, the diodes, some of the ins and outs that you need to get it installed, but it's not going to come with a 6-way round connector or the actual cable that goes from your motorhome to the vehicle. And that's because he's using a tow bar like this. This is a Roadmaster Nighthawk, which comes included with the cable and the connector plug. So if you're using a tow bar like this, you already have those components and you're confident that they're in good shape, that's where that bare bones kit would kind of come into play. If you don't have the components or you have a different type of tow bar that don't come included with them, you'd want one of the kits that come with the 6-way and that cable. And so for example, some of the tow bars have channels in it, right? Like our Nighthawk here. And if that's your case, then you'd want one of 2 kits. One of them would come with this hybrid style here where it's coiled on the motorhome side, and then the rest of it is straight. That way you can utilize the channels and run that wiring through it. So that's an option for you. And then there's another kit that just has a completely straight cable. Either one of those will work just fine. Now, if your tow bar does not have those channels in it, that's where you'd want to use the coiled type kit. So it's completely coiled. That way it'll stay up tight, to the tow bar when you're going straight, but stretch out and give you that extra length when you make those turns. Now all 3 of those that I just mentioned have a 7-way round style connector for the motorhome side. and a 6-way round style connector for the vehicle side. And those are what I always recommend. You know, my thought is if you're going through the trouble to install everything, you might as well have the 6-way to utilize other components, like a battery charge line kit, for example. That charge line kit would hook into the back of the 6-way. You're not going to be able to use that if you have a different style connector. But for whatever reason, you know, if you're doing things differently, there is a 7-to-4 coil type cable, as well as a 4-way flat to 4-way flat end. So if you have an older style motorhome or something without a 7-way on it and don't feel like converting it to a 7-way right off the bat, this is something that you could use. Comes down to it, a diode kit like this is definitely the way to go when it comes to setting up your flat tow. You know, it's tried and true, reliable, and there's, you know, so many different variations of kits. There's going to be one that's going to best suit your needs. Now, as far as the installation goes, really not too bad. It's not super complicated per se, but it is definitely time consuming because you will have to route wire from here all the way to the back up to your tail light. So be prepared to spend a little time there. Thankfully, underneath the Canyon, you know, it's pretty open, so it's not too bad to get the wire routed. But if this is something you don't have time to do or you're not comfortable with electrical, I definitely understand that. Hopefully our video can give you a little confidence to try to tackle it yourself. But if not, you can always use our dealer locator network, and hopefully that can kind of get you going in the right direction as far as finding a shop that can do it for you. But with that said, why don't we go ahead and get started on this now. To begin our installation for our diode wiring, we're going to be working underneath the hood, and ideally you'd want to do this with the fascia removed at the same time that you're doing it, doing your base plate. Gives you a lot more room to work and everything else. So that's exactly what we're doing. But very first thing you want to do, take the big bundle of wire, and we want to drop it down from the engine compartment to the front of our truck. So it just runs kind of behind our headlight there, along through here, and over through here, where eventually we're going to hook it up to our bracket and everything. And the reason we're doing it this way is because with our particular base plate, the Roadmaster base plate, it comes with a really nice bracket, but you have to attach it to the back of the fascia. So we're going to get everything pre-routed. You know, then the fascia will be on with the bracket. That way we can start to hook up and connect all of our wiring to it. So I was able to get our fascia put back in place and everything, and here's that bracket I was talking about, and that attaches to our fascia, and why we did it the way we did. You know, if your truck's set up the same, make sure to give yourself plenty of length with these wires. That way you can actually get them through here and work with them. But with that said, we can take our housing here, and our neighbor decided to use a metal one. It's made by Pollock. So we'll slide our wires through it. Just kind of leave them like that for the time being here. So I went ahead and took our terminal here and set up our charge line. If you're doing a charge line, this is how I recommend doing it first because it's in the middle, easiest to get to. But as far as the diode wiring is concerned, you want to separate the wires into individual strands here, so be careful, cut in between them and peel them apart a little ways. And then what I like to do is cut a little bit of the end off, just to give us a fresh start, and that way if we nicked one of the wires while we were separating them, you know, it kind of eliminates anything from happening there. But we're going to take each wire end and strip the insulation back a little bit, and then give the wire a good twist. That same thing for our remaining ends here. As far as what wire is going to go to which terminal, they're labeled. They're probably tricky to see here, but this one is labeled R for right turn, so the green wire will go to it. This one is L for left turn, so the yellow wire goes there. We have G for ground, so the white wire goes there. And then over here, we have T for tail light, so the brown wire plugs into that. So with these, you just back out the set screw almost all the way. Take the appropriate wire. Place that into the terminal. And simply just tighten on the set screw. So I'll just do that same thing for the rest of our wires here. There's the connector plug once everything is hooked up. What I'm going to do is take some silicone and apply it to the terminals just to help keep everything sealed up. This will keep it protected against corrosion and things like that. So I'll get a good coat on there. And then slide this into our housing. Push it in place, and with this type of connector here, we'll have to put in a little set screw. Get that tightened down. Then we can just secure this to our bracket. With everything connected up front, we can move back to our engine compartment where our harness runs up, and we're going to have to ground our white wire. And so I'm just going to very carefully cut just that white wire. And we'll peel ends back here, and the end that is going to our 6-way connector, that's the end we want to be sure to work with. I'm going to strip that back, give that wire a twist, and that's how we're going to make all of our connections, whether it be a butt connector, a ring terminal, spade terminal, what have you. We'll take the bare end of the wire, we're going to slide it through a ring terminal here. Crimp it down. And before I secure this, as far as the rest of the white wire goes, that's just running to the end of our harness, I'm just going to get that completely removed. It'll make it easier to route these wires to the back, and we'll probably end up using this white wire as a jumper wire a little bit later on during the installation. We're going to need to attach the ring terminal to a good ground, so I just pre-drilled a hole here on our frame. We'll take our self-tapping screw and secure it down. As far as the rest of our wiring is concerned, this is going to have to go to the back of our truck and get hooked up to our taillights. So I'll go ahead, I'll drop this down, get that routed, and then show you the path that I took to get back there. Our wiring just kind of runs along right through here, and then I have it dropping straight down to the underside of our truck. And whenever you're routing any type of wiring, make sure to do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. Here's where our wiring drops down. It's just following our brake lines here, and every now and again make sure to secure the wiring with some zip ties, but it's just going to follow these lines pretty much all the way back. All right, it goes up and over our canister here, and then you'll kind of lose track of it for a second, but I just have it along the side of the tank here where it runs along, and then kind of regain side of it again right there. coming up and over. And I did lower our spare tire just so we could see better. And we're also going to be putting a trailer hitch on this truck, so we had to do it anyway. So you can do it if you want, but wire's going to run through here. And then at this point, what I did was separate the green wire from the rest of our harness, and the yellow and brown, I have it going towards the driver's side, and this is where it comes out. All right, drops down. And then what I did, I took that extra piece of white wire that we had saved, taped the end of it to this harness, brought it back up to where I have it meeting up with our green wire. So now that green wire and that white wire, that's going to get routed over to the passenger side. So I just have it following this wiring here, where it's going to end up in the same general location. So with the wiring kind of in place, we can go up and get our taillights removed. Get our lights out, you can drop your tailgate, and we're going to have two T15 Torx bit fasteners holding it in. And around the edges and stuff where we're going to be working, I did put some painter's tape just so we don't scratch anything up on accident. I'll go ahead and get these pulled out. And what you can do is kind of carefully grab your tail light, pull straight back on it, and we can start to figure out what wires we're going to need to work with. So in order to test them, I'll probably come in, remove some of this wire loom, that way we can gain access to it. I pulled off some of that tape and wire loom to expose our wires, and we can test them to figure out the functions of them. So I already did, found the wire that we're going to use for our stop and turn signal, and that's going to be this blue wire with a white stripe. And as far as the tail light signal, we're going to be using this brown wire with a blue stripe. And the way you could test these is you could turn your lights on or hit your brake. So right now, for example, I have our tail lights on. So if we use a test light and check this wire, we should have power, which we do. So that's how I identified what wire does what. So those are the two that we're going to be working with. To disconnect the wiring harness, go back underneath your truck, and over in the corner, this is what that harness is going to look like. And you'll have a red tab. You can pull back on it and then push down on the center of that tab, and that will release the connector. With it disconnected, now we can completely remove the light and be able to kind of set it down on a flat surface and make it a lot easier to work with to get our diodes installed. You can take the two wires that we're working with here, and I cut them in half. And I like to just kind of untangle them from the rest of the harness there. It's a little easier to work with. And then on each one of these ends, I'm going to strip back the insulation, twist the wire so it's tight, and on every end you're going to take a blue spade terminal, put that on, and crimp it down. So I'm just going to do that same thing for our three remaining ends here. So you got all four of these crimped on, you can grab a couple of diodes, and I'm just going to stick them together. But when you do this, make sure you got the same terminals. So the side that has one each, put them together like that. All right, and then we can start to plug this into our factory wiring. So the side that says out with one terminal, you want to put that on the side that'll be closest to our tail light. So these just slide over it. we'll just go color for color. Reconnect that circuit there. Push our new wiring up into position here, and the new yellow wire crimp on a blue spade terminal, and the brown and white, we're going to do something a little different. You're going to twist these together nice and tight. You're going to take the yellow spade terminal, put that over both ends, and crimp it down. We can grab our tail light, their diodes in it, and get our new wires hooked up. So since the factory brown wire with the blue stripe will be our tail light signal, we're going to plug the new brown and white wire into that diode. And with the factory blue wire with the white stripe being for our stop and turn, we're going to plug the new yellow wire into it. And then really all that's left to do is we'll probably zip tie this up. You know, we can drop our connector back down, get it plugged in, and reinstall our taillight. Since there's plenty of room behind our taillight pocket, shouldn't have to worry too much about that. Just secure the diodes and get this reinstalled and plugged in. As far as the passenger side goes, set this up pretty much the exact same way. Even the factory wire colors are going to be the same. The factory blue and white, that's for the stop and turn. Factory brown and blue, that's our taillight signal. And so the new wires, the green is going to get plugged into the factory blue and white wire, because that'll be our stop and turn. And the new white, that'll get plugged into the diode where the factory brown and blue is hooked up into. So with that all sorted, you know, we'll get it reinstalled and plug back in and go from there. Now we want to test our wiring to make sure that it's all working properly. And so I plugged into the front here, and I'm just using a test box to check all the signals. You can always use your motorhome, but keep in mind if your motorhome has any issues on its own, it might mislead you. And I'm thinking it's something you did on the vehicle side. We'll turn on our taillight signal, our left turn, our right turn, and our brake lights. With everything working, that's really all there is to it. And with that said, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring kit on our 2024 GMC Canyon.